Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox, here to remind you that this is your season. I used to say this is the best season of your life until it was pointed out that it may be the best season for me. Of course, I've been through this journey for a long time, and it is my best season. So now I recognize that you are journeying, and some of you are just getting started in this journey of self-discovery, and of course the journey of deconstructing from things that no longer serve you. So this is your journey. So we've kind of tweaked that a little bit to make it known that this is your journey of self-discovery, discovering your true authentic self, getting to that place of freedom where you can be who you are. You don't have to live a performative life or pretend or try to please other people, learning to say no and so forth. You can be exactly who you are and be comfortable with that, regardless of the opinions of others, regardless of whether they like you or not, because that's a big burden on us. We go through life wanting people to like us in different circles, whether it's at our place of business, whether it's in a social circle. You may be around 5 or 6 friends, but you really don't connect with all 5 of them, but you really want all of them to like you. You may be in a your church, and you want everyone to like you. So what some people do, and I'm going to read something that someone wrote about their experience. They kept volunteering for everything. Why? Because they wanted so much to be liked, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be approved. They wanted so much of that. So they denied themselves their true, authentic self and lived performatively, just really doing what people like, what they wanted, and they would be mad at themselves. They would be mad at themselves for not standing up to who they really are. And so we are deconstructing from a lot of things. We're deconstructing from religious indoctrination. We're deconstructing from conventional norms, traditional construct, things that no longer serve you, social expectations. We're deconstructing from racial ideologies and so forth. As a matter of fact, there's a story, I'm sure you probably heard of it because it's been all over social media. There's this woman, and she went to this restaurant for lunch. And this happened, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. She went to this restaurant for lunch and had a good lunch. It was so at the end of the service was fine, the food was fine. It was a Mexican restaurant, and she enjoyed the meal, everything. So the waiter brings the bill, and it was like $87.95. Anyway, something close to well, $87 and some change. And she gets the bill, and she signs the receipt, and she writes on the receipt, zero tip or no tip, something like that. You suck. She says, I hope Trump sends you back, reports you, oh no, deports you back to your country. Now, I'm not sure where that came from because the story does not indicate that there was any kind of altercation, any kind of discontentment or unsatisfaction with the meal, with the service. There was no indication that there was any of that. So I don't know where that attitude came from. So uh, she writes that and she leaves. There was no exchange of words. He did not demand or ask for a tip. None of that. So she leaves, and she scratches out her signature, her name from the receipt. Of course, with the signature, sometimes you can't really read it. But what she forgot is that there were other copies of the receipt. You've got the customers uh, copy, and then you have the restaurant's copy, and then there's always an extra copy, a whole bunch of copies. Anyway, so she forgets that there's a copy with her name on it. excuse me, they read the receipt and they were alarmed. Uh, the waiter was particularly sort of upset, not because he didn't get a tip. I'm sure he was disappointed because he didn't get a tip, but he was upset because of the derogatory and the unfavorable wish from her part. Come to find out, I don't know what the legal status, but the guy's name is Ricardo, and the assumption is because he is Latino that he should be deported and so forth. So anyway, he was just really disappointed that she wrote that note. So she leaves the restaurant, and I'm not sure whether it was the manager or somebody. There were people around Ricardo that were very upset. It just didn't set well. So what they did, they because they had her name, they looked it up and they discovered her place of work. They contacted the place of work, uh, sent them a copy of the note and so forth, and the company was really disappointed in her. Evidently she'd been working there for a few years, and I imagine no issue. But companies don't want to be associated with something so ugly, so awful, so derogatory, so bad vibe. Just so not cool. And she was fired. She was fired because of her behavior outside of the company. And they discovered. I don't know if it was a business lunch or what. The point is, she was fired. She was distraught, and immediately she went on GoFundMe to start a fund. And her reason was, she no longer. I don't know how this GoFundMe works, and I guess you have to sort of tell them the reason why you are applying for a GoFundMe to open an account to get funds and so forth. And she said something like, she doesn't have a job, she has all these expenses, and really a sad story. And she said, uh, she needs DEI training for equality and inclusion and acceptance and things of that nature. And she wants to be able to turn her life around. Now, I wasn't sure whether I should feel sorry for her or not. My empathy kind of just was put on hold because I wasn't sure if she was sorry that she got caught, or if she was really sorry that she was so offensive toward someone that did nothing to her, somebody she doesn't even know. Anyway, GoFundMe administration got wind of this whole thing. People, because they followed her, and once they realized she did a GoFundMe, it's interesting. There are no secrets today. And once they realized that she had started up a GoFundMe, they contacted GoFundMe and told them the reason, and they shut it down right away. In the meantime, someone else started a GoFundMe for Ricardo, the waiter. They started a GoFundMe, and with the goal of getting like $5,000. I guess that would have been a $5,000 tip. Well, by the time I I I I got another, you know, I saw on social media, it came across my social media feed again. It was up. The GoFundMe they started for Ricardo was up to $35,000. I'm sure it's increased more than that by now. Come to find out, Ricardo only worked there one day a week because he has other jobs that he works, and I don't know what his legal status is, but that's irrelevant at this point. That's not, I'm not going to get into that, but Ricardo is walking away with over $35,000 because of a GoFundMe. Imagine that. What does that tells you? That tells you that today, this generation has zero tolerance for this kind of hate, this kind of behavior. This is not like the traditionalists, the older folks, and the even the boomers, or even some Gen X. People are just not, we're talking about millennials, we're talking about Gen Z. People are just not tolerating this kind of behaviors anymore. So you've got to get with it. There is no reason for that. There is no, unless, and when you talk of, when I talk about deconstructing from racial ideology, that's something that's taught, because you don't come into the world knowing that kind of information or with those ideas. I mean, what's the difference? He's human and you're human. He works, you work. He's male, you're female. And that's because lack of training. We either train our kids the wrong thing when they're small, instead of educating our kids, because parents are teachers, and it's important that you teach your children when they're small. You need to make sure that they understand that in this world, in our society, they need to know the difference between not only genders, but the difference between races. There are people of different color skin, but we're all the same. Some have darker skin, some have different features. Some have blonde hair. It's called blonde. Some have black hair, maybe a little coarse. Some have slanted eyes. These are things we teach our kids, and teach them in a way so that they can learn to appreciate the differences among us, and not think that one is better than the other, because that's just a fallacy. And again, that is a social construct. It started years ago in Europe with the Slavics, the oligarchs telling the Slavics, they wanted to uh, implement this whole thought process, this ideology that the lower class were a bit elevated above those of darker skin, those of black folks. So they made them, uh, uh, they were all slaves, but they made them like foremen and supervisors and crew chief and so forth over those of darker complexion. And they're the ones that created this whole ideology that, you know, white is better than black. And, unless you know who you are, you will buy into that. Not only if you're a lighter complexion, Caucasian, but if you're black, you can't think that anyone is better than you. That's just crazy. It's beyond crazy. That's nonsensical. It's just foolishness. It's stupidity to even think that anyone is better than you. Because you know what? Look, when is our last breath? When we die, we all go the same place. Either you go 6 feet deep, or you're burned to ashes. You don't get you don't get a break from anything. You don't get a break from extended life. You don't get a break from anything. You cannot buy your way. You cannot buy more years to your life. Ask Steve Jobs. Ask Hugo Chavez. Ask any of those that, well, Steve Jobs, not that he was, anyway, I don't know anything about his ideology, but the point is, your money, it doesn't matter how much money you are or what race you are, we all are going to the same place. So when I say racial, deconstructing from racial ideology, this girl, she found out. She found out it was a little too late, because now she's out of a job. That's just, to me, that's just really sad. Something that was totally avoidable. And it's not because there was no indication that Ricardo, the waiter, did anything wrong or offensive. She just wrote, "You suck. 0 tip." It's not, I mean, I don't, this tipping thing sometimes gets out of hand. But again, there is no indication that he asked for a tip or anything of that nature. So for somebody to just come out and say you suck, zero tip. I hope Trump deports you back to your country. That's just rude. That's just uncalled for. So, people are deconstructing from anything. And this person, I think her name was Stephanie. It's all over social media, so it's not a secret. But I think, it's kind of too late. She wants to go now and have DEI training. But when you're an adult, that's just you are just exhibiting something that's within you. You are exhibiting that, and there's no need for that. So we are going through all sorts of deconstruction, and in order to get to a place of happy, in order to get to a place of contentment, of peace, you really have to let go of things that no longer serve you. That no longer being racist no longer served her. Like, what would she have gained out of doing something as offensive as that? What would have been the gain to her? I've been to places, not really a restaurant, but yeah, one time it happened. I went to a restaurant. The service was just not good. The food was great. The service wasn't good. And I did not leave a tip because I have issues with that. But you give good service, and I'm telling you, you are getting a tip. I don't even need to see the percentage because I will go above and beyond that. I will give you 40, $50. It all depends. I like to tip, but if it's like when I go to these not self-serve, but where they just you order and they just give it to you. I don't give a tip. That's not, anyway, this thing is not about tipping. But the point is, if she was upset about that, that's okay. But to put a message, a note like that on the on the receipt, that's just offensive. So anyway, Stephanie learned her lesson. Let that not be you, but in other areas of being of deconstruction, like Gwen writes this whole message here about her deconstruction experience and where she's at and so forth. And it really encouraged me because when I see someone coming out or coming into their place of themselves or coming out of that burden of following the norm and the rules and following all the lies that we're told or the things that are taught to us that are not true, and we're living a life based on performance, and you yourself are not fulfilled. Why? Because your performance is for someone else. It's not for you. Because when you are in the privacy of your own company, you are just who you are. You are just yourself. When you are left with yourself, you are simply yourself. But if you live a life of performance, it's always for the public, for someone else, your kids, your spouse, your family, your friends, your job, your everything. And unless you're performing some sort of talent, your behavior, your daily activity should not be performative. You ought to be able to walk in your true, authentic self. So Gwen wrote this about her experience. She says, "My whole life has been performance based. I've always strived to live up to the expectations of my family, friends, teachers, and my spiritual leaders as I always volunteered in the church. It became the expectation." And she's making reference to church. She always volunteers for stuff. So they just, anything that needs to be done, any little work, they can always count on Gwen to do it. So they always burden her with that. And so she says, and I couldn't say no. She could not say no. I live wanting to please everyone and do what they expected of me. That is always a burden. My continued my continued anxiety and depression has made me discover that is not who I am or who I really want to be. I keep thinking that I'm not good enough and not worthy unless I'm serving God in church. And that's what she's been taught. That you're not good enough unless you're serving God your whole life. She goes, now I'm discovering my worth, and I know that I don't have to hold on to people to make me feel validated. My need for affirmation is becoming less with each discovery of my true traits. I have so wanted people to like me as I like them, but that has not been the case. People have used me. So she's now, she's now becoming aware that, people use you if you don't know who you are. Because why? You're always seeking validation, you're seeking affirmation, you're seeking approval, permission, you want people to like you. She goes, for a while, I have felt the need to let go, but I just couldn't. I was afraid of the consequences now and also feared eternal punishment. Imagine that, living your whole life in fear of what people think and, what people say, of eternal punishment. Imagine that. She says, however, I think I'm getting it now. It is finally making sense to me that that is all uh, that is taught. That is all that is taught. In other words, that is all of it is something that's been taught, and she's followed that teaching. She goes, I feel a release and a bit of freedom every time I let go of the thought of wanting to be accepted. I'm feeling more confident and taking baby steps, being more assertive. That's interesting. She's taking baby steps, being more assertive. She goes, I am finally coming out to be my true, authentic self. I'm learning that I don't have to engage in performative behaviors, doing things against my will just so others would approve of me and like me. I am no longer afraid of being hurt by feeling rejected by others. Every day I'm looking forward to discover the amazing, exceptionally authentic person that I am, and to know that I am enough all by myself. The thing is this, Gwen, her whole life has gone through. Once we realize that we have three ages, or we have a biological age, physical, we have an emotional age, and we have a mental age. Now, biological age, we develop and we, go through the biological changes that we all go through, whether you're male or female. But emotionally and mentally, unless you are educated in that vein, and when I say educated, I'm not talking about academics. I'm talking about uh, at home, your parents teaching you the truth, and not, in most cases, they teach you what they know, what's been taught to them. And that's why you sometimes find a mother that is questions her her ability to raise her children. Was I a good mom? Questions her worth. Am I a good mom? And parents that really work hard to become friends with their children, and they're afraid to discipline them or to teach them, to train them to be uh, emotionally intelligent beings, so that they can have better self management as they grow. You see, if you are teaching your kids, your children, what you have been taught, Gwen talks about her wanting to be accepted, and she's been taught in church that you've got to serve God, and in church, serving God, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, or you're not worthy unless you're serving God in church. That obviously is manipulation, and you have to wonder. Just imagine, and I don't know exactly how old Gwen is, but I know that she's at least a half a century old. Um, but just imagine going through your whole life with those thoughts, striving to be loved and accepted and wanted and affirmed and approved by others, and believing that you have no worth. Her thing is, she's going through a religious deconstruction. You have to unlearn all the things that you've been taught in religion, because religion, and some people grow with a fixed mind. A fixed mind is a response to trauma. People are traumatized. When your mind is fixed, because we are not created that way. We are created to be curious. We are created to be, some people may call it nosy, but we want to investigate. We want to know the truth. We want to know new things. We want to be open minded. That's why you see little kids, 2-year old, they call it the terrible twos. Why? Because they're asking all these questions. Why this? Why this? How come? They're asking all these questions. They're touching, they're feeling, they're picking up, they're throwing down. They're asking all these questions. Why? Because it is a normal response to your mental growth. It is normal. So when you come, you as the parent, as the teacher, because that's what we are, or a parent, that's what a parent is. You're a teacher. You teach them the right thing. But if you're teaching them the wrong thing, it's like this woman at the restaurant, Stephanie. She was taught that kind of behavior, or she saw that, she mimicked that from things she saw around. Because if you're taught to be kind to others and the value and the worth in other people just like yourself, then your reaction is totally different. The way you conduct yourself is totally different. You see the value in other people. And that's why it is so important that we know who we are. Because if we don't know who we are, we are so you know led to a life of destruction. Jealousy and envy and hate and strife and all of those kind of emotions that really are burdensome. Emotions that are burdensome, it brings us down. It causes physical ailments, things on the inside. It really disrupts the flow of our biological uh, rhythm. It disrupts it, because when you find yourself with anger, it does something on the inside of you. a lot of those a lot of the ailments that we have is caused by the emotions that we emit, that we feel, that we allow ourselves. That's why it's important to understand the value and the meaning of emotional regulation, because this way you can regulate your emotions and you can dictate whenever something happens. My husband and I, we talk about that a lot. Not to buy into the and awe shock and awe of the things that are happening today, all the news and all that. Don't buy into that. Don't get all worked up. Don't get all bent out of shape. Just remain calm. Just remain calm day by day. Listen to facts, listen to how it affects you, and you regulate your emotions. You listen to the news, you hear what's going on because you want to remain relevant, but then you regulate. It is self-management. And if you don't know how to manage yourself, you will fly off the handle. You will engage in road rage and hurt someone, and then you find yourself behind bars. Why? Because you didn't regulate your emotions. So it is incumbent upon parents to teach their children the truth about themselves. You teach them the truth about themselves. But if you're going to teach again, you can only teach them what you know. And if you're going to teach them, that they're unworthy, they're no good, and so forth, that's how they're going to grow a half a century thinking that they're not worthy, that they're no good, that they're not worthy, they have no value, that they're not good enough. that they need validation, that they need affirmation, that they need approval from people on the outside. So you start seeking that. So just imagine her volunteering at church. And then what happens is that people, they become uh, spoiled. The leaders of the church. Oh no, give it to Gwen. Gwen will do it. Sherry will do it. Barbara will do it. Oh yeah, they're always volunteer. They'll do it. Just give it to her. I remember one time we were when we told our pastors that we were leaving the church, and we used to be in the new members. We were like new members leaders. When they came and so forth, we would after church we would go and greet them and get the information and so forth, welcome them. And so the welcoming team, I guess, welcoming new members welcoming team. And when we decided that we were going to leave church, I think it was the Sunday before that we mentioned it, that, today would be our last day at church. We're no longer going to do this, do that, whatever, and so forth. Now we had a couple of people under us. When I say under us, we were the leaders of that welcoming team, and we had some other folks that worked with us, not under, but they worked with us alongside us. But we were responsible for all the data collected and so forth. And I remember the pastor saying, "Oh," they said, "Oh, well, don't be gone too long," and blah blah whatever. And they said, "Well, I know so and so will do it, so we'll be good." And they were so confident that so and so would take on the responsibility of doing, you know, leading that whole ministry. They were confident of that, and come to find out that they did that for a while because we knew these people, this couple, and after a while, this couple they woke up. They became aware. They said, "You know what? We just feel like we're being used," because they used to be involved in a whole lot of other things. And anyway, they wound up leaving as well. The point is the confidence that someone would have to think um, that, oh yeah, they'll do it. No one should have that kind of confidence. Why? And that's because they saw them as uh, they could easily be controlled or manipulated. Oh, they'll do it. No, you have to ask. And because we in the past have said no to certain things, and they knew that our dynamics was a whole lot different, because my husband and I, even though we participated in church and so forth, we had a mind of our own, and we were able to present things as adults, and not people that you could easily manipulate. That was established, not verbally, but our whole character just kind of showed that. So you have to get to that place where but see, that's when you know who you are. When you know who you are, people can't just push you around or think like, oh yeah, I know them, or oh yeah, she'll do it. No, that's not the way it goes. That's not the way it goes. And then when you say no, then somebody is surprised because you are like, no, that's not going to happen. So Gwen is coming to a place where she is discovering things that no longer serve her. This whole thing, and unfortunately, when you go through a journey of self-discovery, and you are deconstructing from a whole lot of mindset, because what it is that you have to have a mindset shift. You have to shift your thinking. You have to shift your belief system. You have to shift the way you see things, the way you see yourself, the way you perceive things, the way your concept of things. You have to shift your mindset, shift it. But when you shift it, you have to understand why. Why do you think the way you think? Why do you believe the way you believe? What what is it that you know now that's different from what you knew before? And you ought to be able to stand on that. You ought to be able to stand on your truth. And there's nothing like, when you come into this place of your truth, no one can challenge that, because see, like me, I'm a realist. So no one can come to me and try to talk to me about heaven and hell, because that it's too late. It's too late. I subscribed to that mindset years ago when I was religious, because I spent, over a couple decades in in religion. And so I subscribed to that. But once I learned the truth, it just took away, I just reprogrammed my thinking. I just unlearned the things that's been taught to me. And I submitted myself to critical thinking. And that is what Gwen is doing. She is submitting herself to critical thinking. And she's saying, the more I release more of those, the programming and the conditioning, she says, I am learning, I am feeling a freedom. I am sensing a freedom in myself. And that's really what happens when you think about it. And when you start thinking critically, this whole religious thing is, sadly, religion, again, I don't subscribe to any religion. And that's just me. That's just my thing. I don't subscribe to any religion at all, because I did for many years. And, and now that I look back, I don't like to think I have regrets, but it was a learning process, an experience that I've had in my life. And uh, but I think I've caught up because ever since it's been 16 years since we have left the religious circle, left church, religious doctrine. And when I say religious doctrine, I'm talking about the Christian religion. And ever since we left that whole Christian doctrine, there's been a freedom in our lives to live a life the way we want to, and to enjoy, friends, family, life, just everything, having fun, enjoying the pleasures of life with no condemnation, no kind of judgment, none of that. We just live and enjoy ourselves, and so forth. Not afraid to die, not afraid of hell, no hell. No, we don't subscribe to that belief. When I say we, let me speak for myself. I don't subscribe to that belief at all. And when I share here on my show, this is not, if that's your belief, then that is just fine. That this show may not be for you. It 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 just may not be for you. But if it's for you, but you that are deconstructing or are going through this journey of self-discovery to discover your magnificent self, as Gwen said, she's discovering her, how did she put it? She said, every day I am looking forward to discover the amazing, exceptionally authentic person that I am, and to know that I am enough all by myself, that she's enough. She doesn't need validation, approval, affirmation. She doesn't need any of that. She is knowing that she's enough. That means that um, she is going to experience uh, relationships that's going to part from her, because that's part of it. Somebody said the other day, this journey is not easy. Somebody said that on a podcast this week. They said this journey is not easy. They said because there are a lot of things that you go through that you're going to have the intestinal fortitude uh, to deal with it. Loneliness, ostracized, feeling sometimes just simply alone if you don't know who you are. But it gets to a place where you enjoy who you are, yourself, your solitude, and you make something of it. And you start to, people that walk out of my life, and I don't even have to say walk out. I've had relationship that's just parted. And for me, that's fine, because one thing I have learned in my journey, and I've been going through this journey for the last 16 years, and I didn't see it as a journey, but now that I am that I have this show, I see that it's a journey of self-discovery. But when I came out of religion and started discovering, just really coming out. It's like a coming out to be myself and not be afraid and not. And when I say it's the little nuances, it's just certain things you don't want to do because you don't want to upset the apple cart, you don't want to upset people, you don't want to offend them, you don't want, but I can just be myself. Now, one of the things that I learned that I don't have to be nice. I don't have to be nice to anyone. But I have to be kind. I don't have to be kind. I am kind to people. But this whole thing about being nice, that's a construct. Oh, be nice. No, I'll be kind to you. I'll show you kindness. But you start learning things about yourself and you start becoming bold and bodacious and just really being who you are. And when you start applying critical thinking, all of it, because generally you take on an image, an identity, a personality based on the things that you've been taught. And like Gwen spent all of her years in church, so everything that she knows she's learned from church. And she has these thoughts and the things, and she has these struggles because she has biases that wouldn't go away because that's what she's been taught week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, 5 decades of her life. That's She's been taught that. So that is something that's really a challenge to deconstruct. So I the thing is this: when you start thinking about all of this religious thing, um, just go back and unpack what you have been taught. The Bible talks about uh, good and evil. We think about good and evil, and a conversation with someone, I said, this thing about being evil. When you ask yourself the same way God, and again, I don't subscribe to the Bible because I know that it was written by men, and these are men's imagination. These are ancient men, their imagination, and it's really interesting how it happened because the emperor of Rome, Constantine, he had his uh, empire, and there was a lot of bickering among the religious leaders. There were leaders of one sect and another sect and another sect and there was a potential civil unrest in his empire. So uh, he mandated the leaders of these different sects to come together and make a decision. He commanded them to come together and make a decision to create one book so that everyone will follow this one book, which we know today as the Bible. And they sat down. Now, this happened over a period of years. And they call it the Council of Nicaea, El Council de Nicosia. And so they sat and took the writings of something somebody wrote and they compiled it together. They left some things out, like the book of Thomas and the Apocrypha. They left some things out that they didn't want to be bothered with it. No, this doesn't apply. And they compiled this book together because the whole idea from of Constantine, he wanted to make sure that everyone was following the same guidelines, the same book, the Bible. They call it La Biblia, the Bible, in his empire. Otherwise, there would have been social unrest. And these guys, the leaders of these different religious sects that came together, they despised each other. They despised each other. So imagine sitting there and debating, and no, we're going to put this in, no, we're going to take this out, and no, this does not have enough force, this does not have enough influence to scare people, to manipulate, this does not have enough to influence them, and we need to do this and we need to do that. and so forth. And then eventually they put it together. And after it was put together as La Biblia, the Bible, one book that would be for his whole empire, and that was to avert any kind of social unrest. Once they put that together over the years, it's been edited, re-edited, 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 and it's been, you know, throughout the whole so many years. It's been even till today. It's been re-edited, translated, translated. So all of it has to do with mind, the mind of man, the imagination of man. The imagination of man. Just think of it. Go back to the Garden of Eden. Go back to the garden and think of poor Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, they knew nothing about good and evil. They knew nothing about that. They knew nothing about that because he said, if you eat of the fruit, you discover good and evil. Well, they didn't know what that was. They didn't have a Webster's dictionary. God told them one thing, the devil told them one thing. They didn't know the devil was bad. Did they know that? Think of it. They didn't even know they were naked. Today you walk the street naked, we think that, they've lost their mind or that's something bad. That's how we would think. This person has lost their mind. They're walking down the street naked. Adam and Eve, they didn't realize their nakedness. By the same token, they didn't know what was good or bad, good and evil. They didn't know because no one explained to them. There's nowhere that indicates that they knew what good and evil was. They didn't know. They got one information from God and another information from uh, Satan. And he said, "You shall not surely die." So when they ate it, they were really innocent. They were innocent. Why? Because they didn't know. They did not know. Go back and read it. How would they have known if nobody told them? And when you think of it, since we know that according to the ancient writers, that they created this God that supposedly knows everything, and he created everything. He's omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and so forth. And you wonder, why would you even create evil? Why would you? And it says that he says it himself, according to the writers in Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah 45:7. He said, "I created good and I created evil." So he's the one, that God, that maniacal, barbaric God. He said, "I created evil." All the evil that we see today, he said he did it. He said, "I created evil." So think of it. That's critical thinking skills. He said it himself. So if that's the way they wrote it, why are you submitting yourself to a whole book written by ancient men according to the times? And they decided that it was the inspired word of God. Who who determined that? Ask yourself those questions. Is that the rule that I want to follow? Is that how I want to fashion my life? And I start thinking, I had this conversation with someone and they said, well, Jesus came for the Jews. Well, yeah, he came for the lost sheep of Israel. Again, according to what was written. And I don't know if these were Jewish ancient men. Well, probably not Jewish because they created this whole thing of Christianity. But the point is, it shows that Jesus came for the lost sheep of Israel, and not for you. So unless you're Jewish, according to the scripture, you are an afterthought. You were an afterthought. You were grafted in. You were not chosen. You were an afterthought. I thought about all these stuff. I mean, it's just now that I'm looking into that because when I left, yes, I did do some research because I want to make sure that what I knew was on my own and that I was centered in my reality and so forth. So, but again, all this thing about deconstruction, that was not years ago, 16 years ago, that just was not on the radar as it is now, as it is today, as it is today. And so now when I think that's why, the fear of God, that's not even part of my sphere. It just isn't, because he said he created evil. So when I see evil today, what I determine as evil, God created evil. That's why when people pray, prayer is a hit and miss. It's like rolling of the dice. It's like the lottery. You know it. You know it. Come on, you know it. I can trust, my husband better than I can trust God. I can trust family members better than I can trust God, according to, this God that they created, the God of the Bible. I can trust people that I know, people that I can count on, depend on, more so than I can trust this God that was created according to ancient men that wrote the Bible. Because you know what? If they took away the Bible, all of the Bible from the midst, and you had no frame of reference, or raise a child without a Bible, and you will see there, unless you pound it into them week after week after week after week, they will have a totally different mindset. And I know families today that are raising their children, that are raising their kids, and really teaching them the value of who they are, their worth, and the things that they need to know and to appreciate in life, and social interaction, people, and the different types of people, the different types of culture, and how, if you're raised in this part of the country, they may do things this way, or they may do this thing. It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. It's just different. So they're teaching their children to appreciate our differences and to respect people as they are, to respect each other. That's better than indoctrinating your kids with that's better than indoctrinating your kids with information that will not serve them, that will make them feel unworthy or less than, or that they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't accomplish this, they can't accomplish that. Think of it. That's not the kind of children you want to raise. You want to raise children that can think, know how to think and process and analyze things, and reason. Children who know how to regulate their emotions so that in school they don't become a bully. And when they see someone needs help, that they lend themselves to help that person, and not be bullying that person or laughing at that person if if that person cannot keep up with the social trend, having an iPhone or the latest tennis shoes or the latest jeans. And no, they are able to appreciate the value in people. And if they belong to, if they go to school with a different type of, or if they see, publicly people with a different type of dress, outfit, uh, they they'll know how to respect that. Why? Because you're teaching them the differences. This is how they do it over there, and when they migrate to America, they still have their culture, but they're in the Western uh, society with us, but they have their own cultural, uh, you know, laws that they follow, and your children will learn to respect that. Imagine a society where we can appreciate our differences. But it starts with you, my friend. It starts with you knowing who you are, knowing that you are magnificent. And when you think highly of yourself, then it becomes easier. It becomes so much more pliable for you to be able to look at someone, respect them, be kind, appreciate the differences. Imagine if we all look exactly the same. You are able to appreciate the difference that we bring to the table, the differences that we bring to the table. So I applaud Gwen on her journey, the things that she is learning. It's impacting the quality of her life. And she's getting rid of the mental conditioning. She's getting rid of all the indoctrination, all the things that she's just checking different things and seeing how it serves her. And if it no longer serves her, then you just ditch it. And a lot of it has to do with religious indoctrination. You can come up with whatever thing works for you, but I'm just sharing that a lot of that has to do with if religion was something that tells you you're worthy, you are a good person and your intentions are good and you're kind and you can reason and you have wisdom and you have strength and power and you can work and become successful and enjoy life. If it was that type of teaching, but there's it's all, a lot of it is doom and gloom. Do this or else. And then we talk about free will. There's no such thing as free will, because free will, if you don't have you don't have free will. I don't have free will. You don't have free will, because uh, Christian religion gives you a choice. It's either or. Because if I say, because personally, I don't want to go to heaven. That's just not a place that I want. I will bow to no one. I will serve no one. That is just, that establishes in my mind. Again, because the book says that. So the alternative is, if you don't go to heaven, you go to hell. Well, I'm not afraid of hell because it just simply doesn't exist. So, see, I walk in my peace. I walk in my comfort. I walk in my understanding. I walk in the knowledge of what I know. And uh, if you are a believer, you are walking in what you believe. And that's because you're not sure. You think you believe what the book says, but you're not sure of where it's going to take you. You're really not sure. You're not sure. I don't care what you've seen, what you're not sure. Unless you have seen God himself or Jesus, according to the Bible, you don't really know. So I tell you that I know that it's not a popular statement to make, but then again, this show is for you that are going through your journey of self-discovery, and also a journey of deconstructing all the stuff that no longer serve you. And with that, my friend, I'm going to leave you with that so that you can muse and meditate and sup and think of those things and continue doing what you're doing, because this is your season. This is your season to unpack, to uncover, and become all that you need to be your true, authentic self and navigate through life, enjoying life unapologetically. Now, every Thursday we meet at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and if you can't meet me here, you see those the icon over here. Um, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can pick up the show 24/7 on any one of those stream. If you need to drop me a note, go to the CynthiaLinoxShow.com, scroll to the bottom, and there's a big square. You can just shoot me a note, and I will respond to you. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. Also, for those of you that may need a little more personal help. I am a certified life coach, and I offer a 30-minute complimentary chat before we take on any kind of engagement. So again, you can shoot me a note and we will chat about that. In the meantime, amigos, have a fantastic weekend. Tomorrow is Friday, so make sure that you go through your Friday and then you have the weekend to deal with, to enjoy. So, ciao, hasta la próxima semana. Au revoir, tata, hasta salud. We'll see you next week, same time.